When the Mavic 2 Zoom was announced, many people overlooked it because of the Mavic 2 Pro. Today we're going to look at some of the creative ways to use the zoom and the best settings for it. The 2x zoom opens up a lot of possibilities. Of course you can shoot from further away, going unnoticed, but more than that, you can compress the scene with longer focal lengths, bringing the foreground and the background together. This gives you more flexibility with your compositions and can also make camera movements look more elegant, but more on that later. So let's talk about composition. Here's a scene from Jamaica. I like the foreground, but at 24mm the subject and the background feel too far away. So we'll move back and zoom in, adding an extra foreground layer, bringing the subject closer. Here we're at 40mm, bringing the palm trees closer to the foreground. And now we'll do a slow push over the wall. While you're shooting, keep in mind that this lens is not a constant aperture. It'll go from 2.8 down to 3.8 as you zoom in. So check your exposure after zooming. If you've seen the Mission Impossible Fallout trailer, you notice that every drone shot feels like it's about 50mm or longer. The longer focal length gives you this elegant look to the camera movement, and you can do the same thing with the Mavic Zoom. Here I am over the water flying, fully zoomed in. You can see how the background is whirling around as I pivot. So try to play around with these different focal lengths to isolate your subject from the background. So now you know some of the benefits of the zoom lens. Let's set up the camera. Be sure to be recording in the H.265 codec. It's the visual equivalent of doubling the bitrate. Now of course the D-Cinelike mode is going to be more flexible than the normal color profile, and I found that a sharpening setting of 0 feels the most natural. You can see here that the negative sharpening becomes very soft, and anything above +1 sharpening looks digital. So 0 is the sweet spot. To get as much dynamic range as possible, use a contrast setting of -3. This will require grading in post, but the extra shadow and highlight detail is worth the work. Now a saturation setting of 0 keeps the colors looking neutral and gives you enough saturation to work with when you apply your LUTs. To help you with the grading, I've taken the SkyGrade's LUTs that were really popular with the Mavic 2 Pro, and I've tuned them for the Mavic 2 Zoom. SkyGrade's Naturals give you 3 different natural looks, and the Cinema Pack has a bunch of creative looks. Every shot in this video has been graded with them. Now a polarizer is key for reducing glare. This lets in more color and contrast. Polar Pro's Vivid ND series is my favorite, and it's easy to rotate and dial it in. It's hard to adjust the polarizer while it's on the gimbal, so I suggest holding the polarizer up to your eye, rotating it until you see the maximum effect, and then using the mark to keep it in that same location once you put it on your gimbal. Unfortunately, they only come in sets of 3, and unless you're interested in having ND to maintain 1/50th shutter, you really don't need 3 of these. Also on Polar Pro's website, they only sell in sets of 3 as well. It ends up being $79. So to save money for you guys, just go to search and you can type in single filter. And these aren't listed normally, but you will see the single filter for the Mavic 2 Zoom right here. And once here, I suggest just getting the ND8 polarizer combo for $34.99, and this will save you around $45. For low light, you can't go higher than ISO 1600 while in D-Cinelike. There's a little trick that I found that works on the Mavic 2 Pro, and it also works on the Zoom. If you flip over to normal mode and you set your ISO to 3200, flip back to D-Cinelike, you'll be recording in 3200. It'll still read 1600, but it's shooting at 3200, and if you go down to 1250 and back to 1600, you'll notice that it's actually a stop darker. If the low light shooting's your thing, you'll want to denoise it. I love Neat Video. I have some noise profiles made specifically for the Mavic 2 Zoom that you can check out down below. So to wrap up, the Mavic 2 Zoom is hands down the most fun I've had flying a drone. It has the image quality of the Mavic Air and the range and flight time of the Mavic 2 Pro with a sharp, versatile zoom lens. For now, you'll have to decide if you want the better sensor that's in the Mavic 2 Pro or the versatile lens in the Mavic Zoom. So I hope that gives you a few ideas on how to use the zoom lens to be more creative with your compositions. I'll link to all the LUTs and noise profiles below. And until next time, have fun flying.